All right, it's the Brandon Cruz Daily Fantasy Podcast, where I'm going to look at low plays and strategies specifically designed for GPPs. This is a show for people who are already informed on daily fantasy sports and how these contests operate. If you have any questions related to NASCAR that isn't a stupid question, feel free to show my way on Twitter at BrandonCruzDFS. Most importantly, take everything here with a grain of salt and use your best judgment when making entries. Additionally, if you have a gambling addiction, that's just not my problem. Check your sensitive feelings at the door. We're going to focus on the Homestead Cup Series race in this video right here. Got a lot to go over. Going to be a very visual video, so if you're used to just kind of listening or you kind of, skim through this, I'm going to be talking about a lot here, so I'd suggest check out the YouTube video itself versus just listen to the audio. And first and foremost, you guys have been awesome. The live shows that Pierce and I have been doing have been amazing. We've had a lot of fantastic feedback. I can't be happier with where we're at right now. So thank you guys for watching that. Thank you for supporting us through that. And let's get right into this weekend. Going to be talking about quite a few things here. So obviously on top of the screen, you see Brandon Cruz DFS on Patreon. If you want to support me, support the channel, go there. You can find, obviously I have projections. I have a heat map. I have, really easy ways to look at things, and I could talk about the projections that I sell or the cores that I sell, but really I sell time. I'm selling you your time. This stuff, even without practice and everything like that, it's still very time consuming. If you're coming in on Sunday and say you're a guy who doesn't really watch the races, it's the same thing as like NBA. When you're diving into minutes, when you're diving into different players, when you're diving into different games, it takes a while. So I'm saving you time here. I'm giving you back your weeknights, your weekends, your time to spend with your kids, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever the case may be. That's what I'm helping you out with. So if you want to support me, if you want to save some time, check my content out on Patreon. We got a lot of things going on here. You see that I'm going to be very visual, as I said here. And I got another little ranking here, another little thing highlight here, just a little dollar symbol. The pricing on DraftKings has been a bit weird. I feel like they're missing on guys a lot more. The past, certainly this year, and then obviously last year with it being the first year that they didn't have practice. I feel like there's a lot of mispricings going on. I'm trying to get through this pretty quickly, so I'm not wasting your time here. So looking at, and we're going to talk about each driver, obviously, but looking at this weekend, I am not, and look, I'm going to either die on this hill or I'm going to die on this hill one way or another. If it goes my way, it does. If it doesn't, that's just going to be it. I am not focusing on track history at Homestead. I am not focusing on the recent Homestead race last year. I'm not focusing on really the championship races, and I'll get into that. What the tracks that I'm looking at and the data that I'm specifically looking at to target drivers in this race are from Texas 2, Kansas 2, Las Vegas 2, and Darlington 3. So what is that? That's the Texas race that was in the playoffs, Kansas race that was in the playoffs, Las Vegas race that was in the playoffs, and Darlington before the playoffs there. Maybe that was the playoffs. Southern 500. I don't remember where it fell in. They all just, the whole schedule just blends together, The reason I'm looking at this is, and not looking at Homestead specifically, is because, one, that was usually the championship race, and that has so many variables in it to how these drivers, how these teams attack it. Usually if you weren't in the championship four, you would just lay over. You wouldn't even try and compete. Obviously, you're still trying to win, but if you're surrounded by championship guys, you're not going to mess up their race or anything like that. Certain drivers and certain teams would attack this race specifically, just trying to stay out and trying to stay ahead of the other championship contenders. So, obviously, seeing guys that have had fast cars there is good. Seeing that guys have led there is good. But putting all my weight into track history, which is what a lot of people have done since we don't have practice and everything like that, I think it's much more beneficial to get off that and really dive into lap data. And if you want to do that, go to racesurprise.com. All the lap data is there that I use to find all this stuff out, that I use to make my lineups and everything like that. So go check that out. That is racefortheprize.com. So what am I looking at these races from Texas? Who are the drivers that I'm looking at? Well, the drivers that I want to specifically look at in these races, and I'm going to sum up these guys here, but the guys that I wanted to look at entering this race was Hamlin, Legano, Harvick, Truex, Custer, and I'll explain why in a second, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, Ryan Blaney, and Kyle Busch. These are the drivers I wanted to see how they were in those races. And I'm not necessarily talking about race rating or their average speed. It's more so when I'm looking at these tracks, I'm rating them of who I think had the best car in the field or where I think they fell in the field. in terms of just general speed. Obviously, since we don't have practice, these drivers have to arrive to the track with whatever they have. The reason I'm not focusing on the Homestead race again last year is because that's when they were kind of getting the swing of things, but not really. It was ran in June. I don't exactly remember what race it was back from the COVID break. I think it was third or fourth race back, I'm sure. Actually, let me look. Okay, so I brought it up because I know someone's going to ask me. So it's the 8th race that the teams ran last year after the COVID situation. The reason this is important because Darlington, I'm throwing that away. The teams had no idea what they were doing at Darlington. With no practice, they just showed up with whatever they had. Second Darlington race, they just went off of whatever they learned from the first race. Charlotte, obviously, you had the qualifying for the first one, and then Coca-Cola 600. And then they had Bristol, which is the 1.5 mile or a track similar to this. Atlanta. And not really. I'm not looking at Atlanta. I'm looking at Texas, Kansas, and Las Vegas. So I'm kind of throwing Atlanta out because although it's a very abrasive track, you have a lot of tire fall off. I'm not focusing on Atlanta. Martinsville, obviously a short track. So Homestead was really when they kind of understood what they were bringing to the tracks without practice, but not really. And to mention, you had lightning delays. They started it started and then it got pushed back and then they started up again. So what originally was supposed to be, a day race or at least a hotter track, ended up going into the night, and there's so many variables behind the Homestead race last year I just don't even want to really bother with. That's why I'm looking at these races. So back to the drivers and why I'm looking at them. So, and like I said, maybe Darlington 3, but I'm really focusing on these guys. And why is that? This is the end of the year. This is when they were showing up each week, not practicing at the 1.5 miles. These drivers or these teams knew what they were bringing, and this is the best example of what they're going to bring to Homestead this year. Yet again, with no practice, I imagine that whoever was fast at the end of last year is going to be fast at the beginning of this year. And it's usually always like that. Teams catch up throughout the year, but really the only things we have to go off of is those races last year. So quick summary of Texas. Harvick was fastest until the rain came and he hit the wall, which really puts it in perspective when you see NASCAR throw a yellow at the road course. And I know it's a road course. I know they can throw it because of the rain tires and all that. But, it really shows how much NASCAR didn't want to throw the yellow at Texas. When it was literally raining, you could visibly see it, and they don't throw the yellow. And there barely any sprinkles at Daytona, and they throw the yellow like that. So I think Harvick had the fastest car till then. After that, Truex had the best car. Custer was bottom of top 15. Chase was, around 7th best. Bowman around the 8th best. Blaney, you could argue for 3rd or 2nd best. Kyle, I can't make a case anyway. I know he won the race, but he did that through pit strategy. On track data, looking at his times, I can't make a case for Kyle Busch anyway. So I won't rate Kyle in this one. But looking at Texas, Truex probably the fastest. Harvick probably the fastest as well, but obviously, he wrecked, so I'm going to count him 2nd fastest or 2nd best car. Blaney probably had the 3rd. Chase had the 7th best. Bowman 8th and Custer 15th. Now, Legano and Hamlin, the reason they're in red, I forgot to mention this, I'm really hesitant to play Hamlin and Legano starting on the pole here. We saw last year a lot of the pole sitters who normally draw a lot of ownership, who normally are expected to be dominators, even though I hate using that word, everybody still uses it. They expect them to lead laps and everything like that, and they really weren't doing that. Pierce and I kind of talked about in a video during the preseason, talking about projected lap leaders and stuff that kind of busted, who really didn't hit projections and all that. And this just screams a race that people are not going to hit projections, specifically Hamlin and Legano. I am very low on them this week. No matter what the ownership is, no matter what the case may be, I'm just not on Legano and Hamlin, which is why I like making these videos early, because then I'm not influenced by anyone. These are my straight up opinions here. So that's why they're in red. You can't even read it. That's why Legano and Hamlin are in red here, because they're the guys I'm hesitant. But I still wanted to see where they stacked up with the guys that I'm interested in. So Kansas, Martin Truex Jr. was able to get through traffic really good in the race, but he kept stalling out around 8th. Custer, same thing. He was around 16th, 15th, somewhere around there. Chase, I think he had the best car, but pit cycling and traffic really hurt him. Bowman was around 5th to 6th best car. Blaney was the 4th best. Kyle Busch was, 13th best, but the pit strategy and pit cycling really worked in his favor. So summing up Kansas, Chase Elliott had the best car, or fastest. Like I said, it's my ranking. This is kind of just how I'm summing it up. So Kansas, Chase had the best car. Harvick 2nd, Blaney 4th, Bowman 5th, Martin Truex Jr. 8th, Kyle Busch 13th, Custer 15th. And then Legano, you could make a case for third or fourth best. Hamlin, fifth or sixth best. So looking at Las Vegas, Martin Truex Jr., he was able to drive into the top 5 for most runs. He just really couldn't get any farther than that, and that was throughout the entire run. So I would say he was probably the fifth best, give or take, somewhere around there. Custer, yet again, 16th. Chase had the best car, and he would have won without the yellows late in the race. But that's just how the race went. Bowman ran between 7th and 4th, but improved throughout the night. Sorry, I keep forgetting you can't see this. Blaney struggled. It was probably his 7th best car. Kyle ran 4th until, halfway, and then pits and traffic hurt him and all that. So give or take, probably the 10th best here and there. Legano was the 2nd fastest car, but until he had major contact when they went 3 wide into turn 3, I think it was Kyle Busch who got into his inside, and he ended up cutting a tire down, and he never really recovered from that damage or going a lap down and changing that tire. So Hamlin and Chase with the class of the field. Harvick just never really showed up. So looking at Las Vegas, it was Chase who had the best car. You could make it, let's argue, 3rd, 4th, 5th-ish best car for Bowman and Truex. Harvick probably the 6th best. Blaney the 7th, Kyle Busch 10th, and then Hamlin and Legano 2nd and 4th. And then when you look at Darlington, I just kind of summed it up with the drivers here. Chase and Truex had the 2 best cars, with Harvick right behind. Obviously, Chase and Truex got in a wreck there and really screwed a ton of people. Then you had Hamlin, Bowman, Legano, Kyle, Custer yet again in 16th, and Blaney just kind of struggled at Darlington. And like I said, I'm not really looking at Darlington. Darlington and Homestead, sure, like I said, they're abrasive, but you don't race them the same. Now that I've talked about that for 11 minutes, I quickly broke it down here of just how my rankings, or how I viewed them being quickest and everything like that in these races. So obviously I have Darlington 3, Las Vegas, Kansas, and Texas, and I just did a very general average ranking. And so who really pops off here in my mind, if who had the best car from these races and who should arrive with the best car off the trailer, who's going to have the fastest car off the trailer? It should be Chase Elliott. Should be Chase Elliott right there, and then it'll go Truex Jr., or it'll go Chase Elliott, Harvick, Truex, Legano, and then probably Denny Hamlin, and then probably Alex Bowman, probably Ryan Blaney, and then Kyle Busch. Now, why is the Alex Bowman interesting? Because, looking at how I view Alex Bowman in hindsight, in this, Bowman was not looked at enough. He wasn't given enough credit. He wasn't priced up high enough to where he should have been. He actually was running very well late in the season, almost very similar to how he was entering last year's race at Auto Club, entering last year's races. So I'm kind of heading back to the Bowman train. This is what I learned from looking at this type of stuff. I just want to bring that up to you. Hamlin and Legano are interesting. Just looking at how I have them kind of ranked here, this shows that there's a good chance Hamlin does not arrive off the trailer with the best car, or Legano. Now, they can get better throughout the race, but right off the bat, expecting them to lead a good portion of the race, I'm not really interested in it. When you look at their recent history, maybe it's going to draw ownership to Hamlin that shouldn't necessarily be there. He won the race last year. If you look at his other finishes, 10th, 12th, 9th, 10th, and 7th at Homestead, that's kind of a wake-up sign. Maybe let's not be heavy on Homestead, or let's not be heavy on Hamlin, or maybe you are. I'm just making a case to not do that. When you look at Legano, his recent history, obviously he finished 27th at this race last year, but 5th, 1st, 6th, 6th, 4th, 16th, maybe that's going to draw ownership to him. Whereas I think he's probably going to be around the 4th or 5th best car here. I'd much rather go to Truex. I'd much rather go to Chase Elliott. Hell, I even go to Ryan Blaney or Bowman. Maybe not Blaney, I guess I spoke out of turn there. But Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, Harvick, I think there are way better plays than Hamlin. So I want to bring this up to you when I was doing some not quick research, but just how I was approaching this week. So that's how I would rank them there. So let's get into the actual drivers. Let's get into actually breaking down this weekend's race at Homestead. Now, as I said, I'm hesitant to play Hamlin and Legano. My interest is going to be very low. Obviously, you can see projections and ceilings right here. Not mine necessarily projected at the end of the day when I go into my lineups with, or what I'm using for DK points, but this is just where I think they're going to finish right now, talking on Wednesday evening, because like I said, I like being the first one out there. I like getting all this stuff out of the way so everybody knows where I'm at. Christopher Bell, not interested in it. Harvick, and let's talk about the pricing first. So Kevin Harvick, he's a misprice. he's mispriced. Looking back at where I'm looking, it's Chase Elliott and Harvick coming into this race that I see having the best cars. And Harvick being, where is he? What is he? Harvick is 10-1, and I closed out of this on accident, so I apologize. Give me a moment, por favor. All right, here we are. Harvick is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's the 6th highest priced driver. Mispriced there. Horrible. He should not be the 6th. Big red right there, like big X. You ever watch Family Feud? And like, no matter what the answer is, everybody claps, and the other team just goes to X. Maybe this is Des Bryant, whatever you want to call it. Big X right there. Kevin Harvick is mispriced, misrepresented. Big error on the DraftKings side right there. Other people who are mispriced. I mean, Chase Elliott, 11,000, starting 11th, a lot of place differential. The guy who I imagine should be, yet again, kind of looking at where I'm kind of ranking everybody right here, and just my head here, he should have the best car. Off the trailer. Chase Elliott should have the best car, ran extreme. And if you want to go back to Homestead, and that's not even looking at Homestead last year. If you look at Homestead, if you look at how Chase Elliott did at Homestead, Chase Elliott was awesome. That's why I wanted to bring up Homestead last, or I wanted to bring up how they did at Homestead later, because this is where everybody's going to start. So when you go back and look at Homestead, look at the lap data, go to racesurprise.com, look at where he was at. I mean, Chase Elliott was up there fighting for the win in second. He led quite a bit. He finished second in this race last year. So, sure, I'm looking a bit at Homestead's track history. I'm looking at a bit of how they did last year at Homestead. But what I'm really looking at is the tracks leading into this race, or leading into this year. Texas, Kansas, Las Vegas. That's telling me Chase Elliott is a great play. He should arrive with the best car. Then you cross-examine that with Homestead. Chase Elliott was one of the best cars last year, so this just kind of backs up Homestead. So if you're doing different type of research, if you have time to do it, if you don't, obviously I'm saving you time on my Patreon, and I just kind of tell you who I enjoy and where they're projected to do. But if you're doing research, you really have to dive down. It's not just surface layer research. You really got to dive down. You really got to look through, especially without practice. You got to try and find every advantage you can get. So Chase Elliott, value, and this, I don't know what I'm going to call this exactly. Value, mispriced. Either way, I think Chase Elliott being the 3rd most expensive driver, being 11,000, is too cheap. Alex Bowman, let's make an interesting argument to them for Bowman before I get into the rest of the field. Bowman at $8,300. Looking at, like I said, these last races, Bowman is showing up, right around, 5.75, around the 6th best car, in my opinion, of where these guys are. Usually he's a top 5 contender. If you look at lap data, it can lean one way or the other, but I think he's a top 5 car. So Alex Bowman starting 13th at $8,300. I'm probably going to be very high on Alex Bowman. He's mispriced in my mind. If I'm looking at him this much and enjoying the thought of playing Bowman at 13th, starting $8,300, if he can get, top 5, top 6, I have him projected right now for 7th, I think Bowman's a great play. Let's talk about Kyle Larson. What the hell is this? 10-7? Are you kidding me? Larson is horrible. Larson sucks. Oh, but Brandon, he's led over, 325 laps and stuff. And I talked about this on the Dirty Air podcast with Jason and Ryan. Look, Kyle Larson, sure, he's led laps here, but he doesn't do anything, okay? Let's take a step back from that. And that's when he's running a Chip Ganassi car. And I know he's getting more out of that car than he needs to, but he needs to be fast here, you have to run the high line. And Larson runs the high line well, but he runs at 110% every single lap. He's going to go over the edge. We've seen Larson get into the wall. Do you know why he hasn't won at Homestead? Because he pushes it too hard. He gets in the wall, he makes mistakes. There's a chance that he leads a ton of laps, but let's look at Homestead. And he hasn't even been in a Gen 6 car since last year, okay? He hasn't been in NASCAR. He hasn't raced this. I think Larson will get back into form very quickly. But entering this race, he needed practice to at least get comfortable back in the car. I see Larson stepping over the edge because he's done in practice. If you go back and look in practice at Homestead, where he's constantly racing, Larson usually tags the wall in practice a little bit. They usually have to make some minor repairs to that. He can't afford that in the race. There's no practice for that. So if you look at his history, Homestead in 2019, he finished dead last, 40th, then 13th, 3rd, 5th. If you go and look at his laps, give me a moment here because I once again X'd out of it again. But if you look at his laps and how Larson has done, hold on a minute, sorry. All right, I apologize for that there. If you look at his races, his last good run, let's bring it up here. Laps led 132 in 2016, and he finished. Oh my gosh, I just went blank. He finished second that year. Okay, 2017, he starts 7th, finishes 3rd, leads 145 laps, still doesn't win the race, goes over the edge there. And then 2018. Starts 11th, finished 13th, led 45 laps. That's just not going to do it here. And then, obviously, 2019, he had engine trouble and was out at lap 207. But the hype around Larson is going to be so huge because people are looking at nothing but track history. And I would argue that I think Larson is one of the worst plays here, not only because I don't see him leading a huge portion of laps. I think he led a lot of those laps because he was able to get used to the car. He was able to dial it in to run right against that wall in practice. He's not going to have that here. It's going to be a bit of a learning curve because he's probably the driver at the biggest disadvantage here because he hasn't been in a car. He hasn't raced this type of racing in a long time. I see Larson making mistakes there. So this is a huge, huge misprice there. Let's talk about Daniel Suarez here, who I am very high on Suarez. I haven't seen anything to show me that this is a bad car. I'm not even going to use the example last week. Obviously, I said I preferred Suarez over Ty Dillon. It ended up going my direction there by a few points on DraftKings where Suarez was lower owned and he was the better play. And it's the same situation here where I think he's actually mispriced. I think that there is a good argument to say that this is a top 15 car. I don't have a lot to back that up. That's me, shooting from the hip, gut feeling here. Looking deeper into Trackhouse, I shared an interview on Twitter. I'm not just basing everything off that one interview because I've looked at other stuff related to Trackhouse and stuff. But they're taking this seriously. This isn't like, Rick Ware or BJ McLeod where you're kind of wanting to build up. Obviously, it's going to take time. It's a growing team and everything. But they don't seem like they're going to take it slow. They are getting the cars from RCR. I imagine they're trying to get the best equipment they can right now because it's the cheapest it's ever going to be for the Gen 6 right now. And I just don't see them, rolling over, running 23rd, 25th, 29th. I see Suarez getting a lot out of this car. I would argue that despite the fact he was at Joe Gibbs, he had the worst equipment at Joe Gibbs. Worst equipment. There's an argument to be made that this might be the best car Suarez has ever been in. And if that's the case, and this is a lot of me, believing in this car, not necessarily for Suarez, just I think this car is better than what we're expecting it to be. And this is a situation to where you got to be on this way before everybody else. Because once everybody if Suarez ever gets good, the wave is going to be there. And once everybody's on that wave, it's just bound to crash. You have to be there before everybody sees it. This week's a bit interesting. He's $5,700. I liked him going into this week. I don't know if that price is going to shove him into lineups. Like, very similar to Ty Dillon last week. A lot of optimizers put Ty Dillon in the lineups. A lot of people ended up on Ty Dillon at the end of making their lineup to where, you're just kind of stuck with Ty Dillon. Suarez at $5,700. I'm not sure if that's going to scare people off. I'm not sure if people understand the potential of this car. I'm going to be very high on Suarez. I think he's a top 15 car at $5,700. That's a hell of a steal. And he's probably going to be in a ton of my lineups. That's why he's a red right now under that dollar sign, because I think the opportunity and the car, the opportunity on DraftKings, it's just too high. There's a misprice there. I think that's, if it goes that way. If he's garbage, he's priced correctly, and I'm going to lose my ass this week. But that's just where I'm at there. Kyle Busch. Let's talk about good old Kyle Busch. I don't know. This is yet again, red light. What's going on here? Kyle Busch, 11.8. Are you kidding me? What are we basing this off of? What? There's place differential, sure, it's going to come at a premium now. You're going to be paying up for guys who are having bad races. But Kyle Busch, that expensive 11-8, starting 24th, where is he in my, my mind rankings? He's 10th, and that's not even including Texas. Maybe they're including because he won at Texas in a fuel race, and hopefully this race goes green. But I just don't see Kyle Busch getting there with a new crew chief. He wasn't that well. With Adam Stevens last year, he would improve throughout the race, but he was never that dominant. Honestly, he didn't deserve to win Texas. I'm glad he did, but he did not have the best car there. That was purely a fuel strategy play that won him the price. And if that's the case, let's look at it. Where do I see him running? Where do I see him finishing? 11th to 5th. That's where he's at right now. I don't see him leading laps. Right now, I do not project Kyle Busch to lead any laps. At his price, he needs to be a lap leader. He needs to get fast laps. I don't see him getting either. I think that is a misprice. Once again, I don't know if people are going to jump on that or not. If you're going to be stubborn and you're going to try and play Kyle Busch or Denny Hamlin, I would honestly just take Hamlin. But I would recommend I am most likely going to fade Hamlin, Legano, and Kyle Busch and build from the other guys I'm talking about. So that's me. Last guy I want to focus on is Chase Briscoe before I go through the grid and really break down the guys here is Chase Briscoe. So $7,200. The reason I looked at Cole Custer and the reason I got his ranking is because I think that's going to be very similar to how Briscoe runs. And I think Briscoe's a little better. You can make the argument for Custer, but I think Briscoe's the better driver. I think he has more talent in general. So if you look at Cole Custer, should be around 15.5. That's just where that car should land during the race. That's where I think he should be running. That's where I think Cole Custer should finish. If Briscoe's in a very similar car, and I think he's actually in a better car, I think he has more talent from Stewart-Haas starting 30th, $7,200. I can tell you I'm going to be very overweight on Suarez and on Suarez and Chase Briscoe. Too cheap. Easy to fit in lineups, place differential. I'd much rather play him over DiBenedetto. I'd much rather play him over Ty Reddick. So I really like Chase Briscoe going into this, and that's just the guys I want to focus on in terms of pricing and everything like that. So now let's really get into the grid. Like I said, I told you this is going to be a longer one and very visual. It's the first race we can actually kind of break down lap data or kind of look into something that isn't necessarily practice. So that's just why I'm very excited to be talking about this and want to get it out early. So Denny Hamlin and Legano, like I said, I'm going to be probably fading these guys. If I'm playing them, man, I think I'm going to fade him. I just don't see it working out. Christopher Bell, probably same thing, not going to work out. Harvick, love it. Kurt Busch, starting too high up for me. I think there's much better plays, especially at his price. I mean, Kurt Busch, $8,100. I mean, if that's the case, give me Alex Bowman at 83, starting 13th. Maybe if you think Kurt Busch is going to pull out something like at Vegas again, but I just don't see it. Michael Mcdowell, no, this dope is garbage. God forbid they let him lead the freaking championship points. Like, I can't believe he's in the playoffs. Keselowski's interesting. I don't see it. 9-9. I mean, this is another situation. We got a lot of guys priced horribly in the 9s. Like Keselowski's in the 9s, Hamlin's in the 9s, Logano's in the 9s, Byron's in the 9s. I mean, this is just odd. Keselowski's 9,900. He is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's the sixth lowest price or the sixth highest priced guy. I think if you're playing Keselowski, you're going out of your way expecting him to do well, which, as we've seen, without practice, some of these guys can surprise us and they can show up with a faster car. I don't think Keselowski's going to be there, but if you want to put some ownership to him, I would much rather go Keselowski over Hamlin. I'd much rather go Keselowski over Logano. But I'd rather go to the other guys that I've said I like. So I don't necessarily hate Keselowski. I just don't know if I'm going to go out of my way to get him. Priest, I don't like. Truex, I love. Cole Custer, I think he'll probably fall back to around 12th to 16th, but I mainly highlighted him because I think that's Chase Briscoe's potential. Chase Elliott, I love, probably my favorite play. I'm going to have a ton of Elliott. Too cheap, should be one of the fastest, should be the fastest car on the track. That's just how I think it should be. I think Elliott should win this race. Alex Bowman, I like, underpriced, should run well. Blaney, did I even talk about Blaney a ton? I don't know if I did. 7.75. He it goes back to how Blaney was last year, to where he was projected to do well. He was projected to lead laps, and he just never did. He was kind of off pace. He's starting 14th. He's not that expensive. I mean, 10-4. I might have to change that. Give me a good old C by Ryan Blaney. I think I'm going to be low on Ryan Blaney. I'll probably have some laps with him, but I'm going to be aiming for other guys over him. Rick Stenhouse Jr., 17th to 14th. I think that's where he shakes out. Eric Almirola kind of fell off a cliff at the end of last year. Wasn't his, top 5, top 10 self that we saw at the flatter tracks and stuff mid-season last time. Maybe you can make it work at his price. $7,900. I mean, that's not horrible. But Chase Briscoe, man. Maybe if you want to stack Briscoe and Eric together, I'd have to see how lineups are looking through that. I don't know. I'll have to see. I'll have to mess around with projections to see if you can use Eric Almirola. I'm not really sure there. He's just not popping off right now. Maybe if I'm building lineups, I'll see that he works or not. Kyle Larson, too much chalk, too much attention. Hate it. Hate the play. I think Larson's the worst play on the slate. I don't think it's going to work. He needs the lead laps. He needs to win the race. I don't see that. I just don't see it. I don't see it. I see him getting in the wall. I see him getting in the wall. That's just how it is. I think he's going to go over the edge and hit the wall. Eric Jones. I think Eric's going to get a lot out of this car, a lot more than Bubba got out of it last year. If you want to look at his price and if you want to look at where he's at, $6,900, too cheap there. Should be, and I do not want to punt at all. I don't want any of the garbage punt plays at all. So if I'm building, kind of balanced lineups, which I can with the guys that I like, I'm going to be using a lot of Eric Jones. Bubba Wallace, I talked about this a bit in the Dirty Air podcast, which I would advise that you listen to if you want to go into more detail. But summed up really quick, just looking at it more often. I made a joke to my friends when I was watching the road course race. Bubba was running like 17th or something when he was on TV, and I was like, Jordan's going to fire him. Jordan wants wins. I can't overstate that enough. He doesn't want him to run the back, and even running the back to Jordan is 14th, 15th. God forbid he runs in the 20th. I mean, Jordan will tear up his contract right there and then. But Bubba, he has so much pressure to succeed from himself, from outside, the attention that he has from Jordan. I think that's too much pressure on Bubba. The fast way, in general, I think Bubba is going to be out of the sport by 2023 because he's going to get fired by Jordan. And I don't want that. I love Bubba. I'm a huge fan of Bubba Wallace. I just see the pressure being too much for him and him not performing. This is going to be a great example. However Bubba does here at Homestead will determine his season. Why am I saying that? Because Bubba needs to be aggressive. He needs to attack. To be aggressive and attack means to run the outside lane at Homestead. I do not trust Bubba to stay off the wall. I have him having a very high chance of DNFing in this race, to get in the wall, having issues, going laps down, cutting a tire down. I don't like this. I don't like it for Bubba in general. I don't like it as the play. $7,000. I think this is a trap. I know it's the 5th JGR car, but it's Bubba Wallace with a ton of pressure. I don't think he can do it. I just don't see it because of that. I think he's going to be very chalky. I'm going to be off of him. Justin Haley not going to work. I'm going to love Daniel Suarez. Austin Dillon, 7,700. I don't know if I'm going to get to Austin Dillon. I feel like he's going to be in that no man's land range that I'm just not at, that I just don't get to in lineups. So we'll just have to keep looking there. Ryan Newman sucks. We got to stop playing him. You got to get it into your head. Ryan Newman is horrible. He sucks. He's got CTE. He's not good. He's not bad. He's not bad. He's bad. Look, he's not the Ryan Newman we knew the past couple seasons. He's not that guaranteed 16th place finish. He's not that guaranteed value. And this screams where people are going to go to Ryan Newman because he's $6,400 and they're like, oh, all he needs to do is get to 19th. All he needs to do is get to 18th. All he needs to do is get to 17th. And he's just not going to do it. He's going to have issues. He sucks. Ryan Newman sucks now. Okay? Said it. You got to get into my... Ryan Newman sucks. He's horrible. Stop playing him. He never works. He doesn't work. I'm not going to be on him. Kyle Busch, overpriced. Don't like it. Corey LaJoie, no. Cody Ware, no. Anthony Alfredo. I want to make a note here. This is Alfredo's favorite track. He loves Homestead. He's talked about it a ton. He loves racing here in the Xfinity Series. He's been good. And when I say good, he hasn't been the fastest. But when he's running the wall, if you compare him to Larson, if you compare him to Reddick, If you compare him to other cars, he doesn't tear the car up. He's not scraping against the wall. He's very close, but he doesn't get in the wall. Now, his pricing's interesting. This is why I brought up Suarez earlier, talking about maybe the chalk that we have around him, because Suarez is 5,700. Anthony Alfredo is 5,500. When very similar to the Ty Dillon Suarez situation last week, and even last week it was a much closer probability of who would do better, because they were only separated by 2 or 3 starting positions. Now you have Suarez starting 21st. You have Anthony Alfredo starting 24th. If how I think lineups are going to go, and people are going to end up in this this mid 55 or this mid 5,000, low 5,000 range, or even high 5,000, you're going to end up with Suarez. You're going to end up with Anthony Alfredo as the bottom end of your lineup. I think people are going to choose Anthony Alfredo because he's starting farther back, and they don't understand the potential that Suarez has in that car. So we might see Anthony Alfredo have a ton of chalk. I liked him going into this week. Then I saw price, and I saw where I think lineups are going to go. I think Anthony Alfredo is going to work his way into a ton of lineups. Maybe Suarez is yet again lesser owned of the 2 drivers. I think Suarez has more upside. Anthony Alfredo, I think he can finish 20th, 21st, 22nd. I don't think he'll tear up the car. I think he's very safe. I think Suarez is probably the more, GPP related, more risky play, but I would much rather go there. I just trust him over Anthony Alfredo. I just wanted to bring that up in terms of pricing and lineup construction. Smithley, no. I always call him Daveson, no. Chase Briscoe, I love. William Byron, I love. Ross Chastain is trash. He's horrible. He's going to suck in that car. Oh, but, he's better, and, he's a good driver. He drove into the wall last week at a road course. I know it was coming up on the banking, but that's something Ross Chastain is going to do. He's going to overcorrect into the wall. I mean, last week's incident with Ross Chastain sums up who he is in this Cup car. He has no business being in a Cup car. No business at all. Chip Ganassi made a horrible mistake in this. And going back, when Kyle Larson got kicked out, when he got fired from Chip Ganassi, Ross Chastain was there. We all expected Chastain to get the car, but he didn't get it. Chip Ganassi called Matt Kenseth out of retirement because he didn't trust Ross Chastain. Now he's stuck with Ross Chastain because Kenseth is gone. Chastain has no business being in this car. This is a horrible car. Kyle Larson was getting way more out of this car than he needed to. So if you're like, well, Ross Chastain's in the car that Kyle Larson would dominate in this race in, or he'd run very well on the high side and everything like that. Look, he's not Kyle Larson. Ross Chastain is horrible as well. I'm not going to play him here. Don't like him. I think $7,400, he might be chalk too. I mean, it's interesting. If you're looking at place differential, Matt DiBenedetto, Reddick, Chastain, William Byron, and Briscoe, I'd much rather focus on Briscoe and Byron. I don't like Chastain. I don't know how high his ownership is going to be. Timmy Hill, no. BJ McLeod, no. However, BJ McLeod, keep an eye on this car. Maybe if you're going to punt, I think this is probably the best backmarker car there is. I want to see more. I want to see how he does in this race this year. This will be a great experiment to see how well BJ McLeod was. I'm not, probably, like I said, I'm not going to play punts, but I'm going to be interested to see what BJ's lap time is compared to the field and where he finishes in this race and how he runs. Tyler Reddick, $8,500 is going to be very chalky, and I guess I need to, because I already know there's going to be Reddick chalk. I already keep seeing people talk about him. I already saw people talk about him early in the week, but Reddick is going to be major chalk because everybody's going to be like, look how good Reddick is. He's amazing. He's so good. Reddick got lucky. Last year, he didn't blow a tire. He finished 4th at Homestead last year, but he did get in the wall. He just didn't blow a tire. Started 35th at $8,500. 45% ownership, 48% ownership. I think that's what it's going to be, and that's not me using some algorithm. That's just me using my head and where I think he's going to be. I think it'll be over 40% owned. I think that's bad chalk. I think, and it could work. It could kill me, but I think Reddick is bad chalk. I think there's too much risk. I don't think he has that high of a chance to be optimal, and I don't see that ownership really being worth it. So I'd much rather get off of Reddick. Balicki, no. DiBenedetto, I don't like that either. $8,800. I mean, if I'm going to choose one of these guys, it's going to be Reddick. I think he finishes better just straight out. But I think there's a good chance that we see Reddick get in the wall, blow a tire, or have a tire go down, and he finishes the lap down in 21st. That's just how I see it. DiBenedetto, Maybe he can get up to 15th. I think that's where he's going to finish, 15th, give or take there. If you look at how he was running last year at these races that I recalled here, roughly around the 15th place car, roughly around the 15th best car. So that's where I'm going to put him right now, coming off the track, or coming off the trailer. But for a little bit more expensive, a little bit more money, I'd much rather go to William Byron. For certainly a lot cheaper, $7,200, I'd much rather go to Briscoe. So I'm going to focus more on having lineups with Briscoe and Byron in them than Reddick and DiBenedetto. I'm going to try and get away from this chalk. I'm going to try and get away from the Alfredo chalk, and I'm going to try and get away, or I will be away from the Larson chalk, and I will be off of Hamlin and Legano. That's how I'm looking at these races, that's how I'm looking at this weekend's race. Obviously, I'm recording this on Wednesday, so I have quite a few days to decide where I want to go, and if you really want to see where we're at here, you can check out the live stream on my YouTube channel, 10 a.m. on Sunday. Pierce and I will be breaking this race down. We'll also have one Saturday. Need to get the time squared away. I'll probably ask him tomorrow what time is good for him. But follow me on Twitter, BrandonCruzDFS, to be updated on all that type of stuff. Support me on Patreon if you enjoy the content, or if you want to be, if you want to save some time. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you next time, and watch for my Xfinity video coming out probably later tonight as well. So thank you guys for watching, and best of luck this weekend. Can't wait to talk to you on Sunday morning once again. Thank you.